Roger once again, Mudfossil University, free always on YouTube. Now, this is nothing that I will do personally from you, Mudfossil University. I am recommending that someone out there that is in the medical arena do this. And I could see it could be crowdfunded. And again, I don't want to have anything to do with money or any of that business. So I stay completely out of that. But someone, and I don't have the ability to do the research, and I just don't have the time, to be perfectly honest with you. But this is something that's very simple to do. I need an organizing person to go and do some crowdfunding. And what we're going to end up doing is creating a database that will be helpful to every human being on the face of the planet. Because right now, I can't find any organized database of what is a normal health. You said nobody has even a clue what is normal. Seriously, it's unbelievable. And here's all it requires. Very, very simple. It's very minor to do this, I think. But we need to find out, so we need to do a test. So it'd be a trial. All right, so what do we need? Oh, this is what we need. The same thing you could do with your doctor, in certain cases, a fecal sample, which they would get the bacterial count and quantity, 100% of it, not just, oh, you got Bacillus C, that's all we want to know about. No, you want to know every single, and there's 1,000 of them or more, different type, different species. And they have a job, every single one of them, so don't just say, oh, they don't need that. Yes, you do. Now, what else do you want to find out? The blood chemistry and the metals and the count and the quantity and the minerals and every single component of the blood and the quantities, 100%. All right, this is a database. We need to know how much there is, quantities, and what's there and what isn't there. And then we also want to see a hair sample, because a hair sample is a longer duration, and the blood can be affected pretty quickly. But anyway, you want to see, all this stuff is very essential to an accurate database. Then we want to have a detailed checklist of the health issues, just a checklist. Is your hair fall out? Yes or no? Does this happen? Does this your teeth, or your fingernails, your toenails? You get fungus? Do you get yeast infections, vaginal this, and one thing or another? And they just check, and done. All right. Now, what else do we need? Details of vaccines and any antibiotics and other types of things that you're taking. Whatever, what do you eat? What's your normal habits? If you want to have that, people don't need to necessarily do all that, but these are the things we need: the fecal, the blood, the hair, and the health issues. So once we get all that, and your intake, your food, your drink, your drugs, all that would be excellent stuff to have in a database, because it's going to patternize. All right, it'd be a trial sample test. I don't know what you need, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 people, whatever it would be. And if it just kept going and going and going, it would get more and more and more refined, down to a point where you would be able to literally say, well, you only got 27% of Bacillus B. That means your copper is going to be at only 0.027 micrograms, and and I mean, it's going to be that precise. I'm telling you, I did database analysis, and I know for a fact this stuff will form a pattern. Absolutely, I will eat the board right off the counter if it's not true. All right? Patterns will be seen 100%. I guarantee you, I stake my wife's life on it. No, I'm just kidding. No, anyway, this is a fact. This is a fact. This is all we need. It's all we need. So just get a hold of me, and we'll start getting into this. And I understand the chemistry. I'll show you why I understand the chemistry, because I can prove to you right this instant why this will create health. All right, any surgeon or doctor, anybody can tell you that's a heart, and this is where the chambers of the heart are, and there's valves and things, the aorta. And there's tissue walls and muscle and fascia and all of these things. These are the heartstrings, you see. Now, you look at that and you say, well, it's all sort of tissue. But I can tell you right now that is extremely specific tissue in extremely specific areas. And it is loaded with transition metals in the blood that is in this heart. Because this heart is filled with blood normally. Some of it is oxygenated, some of it isn't. It's being serviced by the heart and lungs to go around the body. And the lungs get rid of the carbon dioxide and they bring back any oxygen. And then the oxygen is used in the body, and then the blue blood comes back into the heart. So you have blue and you have red in the heart. Blue is the FeO2 blood. It's already used of its oxygen. Red is the FeO3. Now I'm going to show you what an opalized heart is. And it's the same exact structure as this, only it's in opal. And opal forms when mud fossils, which are fossils that of living creatures that were in mud and extreme wet conditions for a very, very, very long time. It's called waterlogging, and after the waterlogging happens, they are lumps of flesh. And if that lump of flesh ends up having to be in a pool of almost pure blood, it will take on all of the blood minerals to replace itself and become stable. And that's what I'm going to show you right now, is a heart that's become stabilized in blood after being, it's like parboiled or whatever they call that stuff, but it's in salty waters and mud for a very long time, which leaches all the organics and the volatiles out and leaves a lump of tissue that wants to become stable, and it does by attaching to what is in the percolates, and if it's in blood, it will become just what I'll show you now. These are the transition metal ion colors and the transition metals and the different states that they have with their orbitals and their electrons. What this indicates is that they can pick up and drop off other molecules very easily with what's called a ligand. It's a simple little tiny handshake of an electron, and that's what they do, is to transport things in your body, and they transport oxygen and carbon dioxide and all of the different acids and things that you excrete, and they carry around all of the different requirements for your body to be constructed and maintained. Now, these particular metals are created by bacterial enzymes. The bacteria have to be healthy in your gut in order to create enzymes that end up creating these metals. So it's a process. It's what's called now a biome. You are a biome means that you're a process. You are an organism. You're a complete chemistry factory, really. You crush up the products as they come in. They get broken down with acids in your stomach. Once they are broken down into their little components, they leave the stomach and go into the lumen area where they become deacidified and still maintain a way to biologically work in your system. Now, then the bacteria send in the enzymes and to create the products from these things. Okay, so you have the raw goods coming in, they've been all ground up, they are now ready to be absorbed, but you need to have some carrier to carry those around in your body. And that is what the bacteria does. It either eats it and spits out the stuff, or it creates enzymes outside of its own body that go around and harvest it. I'm not 100% sure on that. However, the bottom line is that bacteria creates enzymes, and the enzymes are specific for specific different metals, minerals, and molecules. So the enzymes are literally a chemistry set that goes out and harvests what you need to make your body function. So we know you can eat. Let's assume your stomach is working right. Now you're in the gut. Now you need bacteria, and you need them in the right quantity and the correct species. There is over 1,000 bacteria in your bacterial system. Really, you have a bacterial system. You have a whole invasive army that works for you. And it literally is, I believe, at least 50% of your body is not even you. It's chemistry that has come into you, not chemistry, but living things that have come into you to work for you. And instead we've been taking antibiotics, and that harms them, sometimes catastrophically. And if they cannot repopulate their necessary numbers and quantities, they cannot create the chemistry that makes your body function correctly and become chronically ill. This is what we need to find out, is what is the normal amounts of transition metals and minerals that are literally in your blood, and not just a little bit, but I'm going to show you how we need to find out about this. But I can also show you why I say that I know these are the things that make you healthy, and these are the things that your tissue requires for you to be healthy, or you're not going to be healthy. And I'll show you why I can prove that to you right now. Very simple. All right, this is an opalized heart. This is what they call Yoa nuts. And they don't even know what they are. This is a heart, and what they're finding is organs and things like that, hearts and lungs and kidneys, and I'm serious. All those things are now opalized if they were in this region, in the Yoa region. That's the upper lands, so the terrestrial creatures were there. In the lowlands in Australia, they have the shells and so forth, nautiluses and the clam shells and all that are opalized because they were in the ocean. Strictly because there's so much blood in Australia, totally covered with blood, slaughtered with blood. Now, you see this tissue? It's quite obvious that that is extremely specific tissue. It wants this extremely specific chemistry to become stable, and that's what happened. The red is the blood. We all know that. You see all these little tiny colors in here all over the place? Those are transition metals. I just showed you the transition metals. They are everywhere in here. That is what makes you healthy. If this was purple or black or red or whatever color that it wasn't, in other words, there's going to be a color this wants to be when it stabilizes. That means when it was alive, it had a certain chemistry that it required. Case closed. Simple as that. And that all comes from the blood, and it all comes from these little movable parts in the blood, which is the transition metals, which are able to handshake with things, carry them around. Hey, okay, here's a blue one. Here's another one. Oh, you want a blue one? Here's a blue. Oh, you? Okay. That's what happens. This is literally what happens. I don't know who's pulling the strings, but somebody's telling you, go over and deliver the guy some blue stuff. This doesn't happen by just banging into him. I cannot accept that. Now, so we can see how specific the chemistry of your body is. Therefore, anybody with any common sense can understand if you're missing something that creates the thing that makes that thing green or whatever color it is, turquoise, you're not going to be healthy. You're going to have a problem with that. If it's orange, well, it's not pulling tight enough, or it's pulling too hard, or there's some kind of an issue, and it's going to become perforated, or it's going to lose its elasticity, or it's going to become invaded by some kind of a bacteria because it can't fight it off, or it doesn't have the flexibility. There's a million things that can happen, but the key is if we had a database, it all falls out. Very simple, very, very simple. And I think most people can be healed with diet, exercise, and the correct bacteria in their gut. And I'm telling you, when somebody's not healthy in their stomach, believe me, it is a bad, bad, bad thing. And I've had a lot of people been talking to me about it, and I've had it with myself. I had taken antibiotics, I had a root canal. They gave me antibiotics, and they were saying, well, I don't remember them saying. They probably said, oh, yeah, we told you all about it. Well, I don't remember it. And man, after that, it was all downhill. I've had people say, oh, yeah, they had their colons removed. That's not right. This is not supposed to happen. So we got to get ahead of this, because the earth is getting unhealthy. Let me put it that way. And for this, somebody should be able to do this and get at least a database. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not like the end of the world. Something, maybe it's just a joke, but I cannot believe that. There's no way in the world it will not fall into some kind of pattern. Absolutely nowhere. That's my statement, and I will live by that, I hope. All right, just so you understand, these things come in all different types of, but they're always creatures. They're always biological. The shells, which are from creatures and plants and organs. Okay, you saw the nautilus. Creatures turn into opals when they're in blood, and the Yoa opals are in the higher terrain in Australia, which was where the terrestrial creatures were, and the nautiluses and shells and all that were in the lower regions. But all of Australia completely soaked in blood, soaked in blood. Now, this is a heart, and any heart surgeon can tell you that's a heart. There's no question there. But a geologist will say, oh no, that's an opal, and it just formed accidentally. Well, it didn't. This is so specific, the tissues that form the ventricle walls and the heartstrings and all of the tubular places and the aorta and the fascia and the muscles and all of that stuff is specific. That's why they have these specific colors. Red is for your blood. This is for, your ventricle walls, whatever it is. Now, you see all these little tiny colors there? I don't know if you can see that or not. But all those colors are your transition metals. And these are all floating in your blood. And what they do in your blood is they carry things around. So, my point being is that we know that the tissue absolutely requires a certain type of chemistry. This didn't turn orange here and this pink over here and this red over here. It all looked for the same tissue, the same metal, which we know it's a metal, transition metal, and it all looked for the same transition metals to become stable because it was that kind of a tissue. That tells me that if in your life, if that is not alive and well in service with whatever it needs, it's not going to be healthy. And there will be a way of actually, I believe, taking one of these little probes with a light in an lumiscope or whatever you want to call it, and go in there and actually hit that with, a certain light, how they do in the fish, and they go down and they see in bioluminescence at night, well, that type of thing, and see what that radiates for a color. And if it radiates orange instead of turquoise, this guy's got some kind of issue with that particular area in his heart. This is, there's a lot to be learned here. But we got to start with this database, because that covers everything. It's Morgellons disease, Lyme's disease. They're finding out Lyme's and Morgellons are attached together, it appears. Well, here, I'll show you what I just got today. This is the beauty of mud fossils. Nobody's here to try to make any money. We're here to try to make people healthy. Now, I did a thing on Morgellons in depth in the transition metal role. Part 1. I'm going to do part 2. I'm hoping to do it today, but I'm sort of behind. Now, so this very, very nice person, Bree B, said you mentioned in passing there may be a commonality between all Morgellons patients, which I do agree with, obviously. For example, too much manganese, which I did state. There was a study that showed that Lyme's transport proteins, BMTA, is what scavenges the body for trace metals. BMTA binds with manganese to bring it into the bacteria, and studies have shown that BMTA and manganese are required to make the bacteria harmful to the human body. Now, nobody knows this. And how much of that stuff is there? The Borrelia dies if it doesn't have manganese. The result of this new laboratory study shows that Loratadine, trade name Claritin, and specifically its metabolite, Decelleridin, are able to prevent manganese from entering the cell wall of the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. So now we've gone from Morgellons to Lyme's. Starving the bacteria and causing it to die in test tubes. So they know this happens in the test tubes. Now she's got this in quotes, so this is not her exactly speaking. This is from research that she's done. Now, it causes the bacteria to die and are able to prevent manganese from entering the cell wall of the bacteria that causes Lyme disease, starving the bacteria and causing it to die in test tubes. The antihistamine accomplishes this by inhibiting the bacteria's transport system. Now listen to this. Listen to this carefully. The bacteria's transport system. BMTA, Borrelia metal transporter A. Borrelia metal transporter A. The metals transport things. Sometimes you have to inhibit them, sometimes you have to make them work. Alright, the Borrelia metal transporter A. You would need a dose of 400 milligrams to kill 100% of the Lyme. Also, eudabitamine found in eudabitamine bark works as well, but to a lesser degree. Studies show the Morgellons is a byproduct of Lyme. You ask your doctor. I bet your doctor won't know that. I think Morgellons depends on Lyme or some similar harmful bacteria to survive. And then she goes on about spirochetes and so forth. It's very, very good. And then it goes on to about, I did mention about the acidity and what happens when a woman goes into her menstrual cycle and so forth. And she went on to say that has something to do with the yeast infections and things. And I agree with that. And then studying into that, it shows the castor oil and garlic is good for that to keep those infections away because of it's the pH level. They're fatty acids, esters. They call them esters, but they're fatty acids. They have an acidic value to them. That the other thing needs an alkaline value to survive. It's very simple biology to your body. Really, it is quite simple. But I say it's simple, but trust me, it's too simple. It's a serious thing that just needs to be correct. And I'm wondering whether babies, when they're born, are infused with all the correct bacteria, and infant feces may be the way to repopulate bacterial problems. I don't know, but I know animals force their offspring to eat feces, a lot of them, and that apparently allows them to break down the, all the cellulose and things like that. Very hard to break down, but you need, and even ants, they actually grow their own bacteria and fungus to digest the things that they need to eat because they can't digest it. I'm telling you, we need to get this database. That's about the last thing I got to say, I think. I said it was my last words, but it's not. When I just realized how important this would be for infants, at first I thought, well, maybe they could use the fecal sample from infant feces to repopulate an adult if they were complete in their bacteria. But why would they be complete in their bacteria? Maybe they're not. Maybe the mother needs to be complete in her bacteria. Maybe that has no effect on it. Maybe the baby needs to have some mother's milk and has something in it that affects the baby. All of these things play in. That would be a fabulous thing to have in the database. Are you breastfeeding your baby? Was your baby breastfed? Because the baby may be sick. It may have all of these things that we can obviously be detecting now. And it's not intrusive. You just give them a tiny little blood sample and the feces. It's no big deal. They don't even have to answer the questions. All right, so this really has got to be done. Somebody should do this. It really is a crime against humanity if this does not exist. It's as simple as that, in my mind.